Well, what do you make of that? GBViews at GBNEWS.uk. Let's see what Benedict Spence and Ella Whelan make of all of that. They're here to go through our papers this morning. The party is over, says the Mirror, Benedict. I mean, it's a fair headline.
The word party will haunt Boris Johnson, won't it?
It will. And this is, of course, the story was alluded to just then, that the Prime Minister, one of the reasons the Prime Minister wants to hang on a little bit longer is that he and his wife are planning to have a big celebration of their wedding at Chequers, the Prime Minister's official country residence, that they weren't able to do, obviously, previously, because they had quite a small ceremony. They had it done quite quickly. I think, whilst this isn't confirmed, as far as I know, this is just a story that's going around. We're not sure if it's the case yet. It continues to feed into the narrative, doesn't it? That, for whatever you might think about Boris Johnson, there is always an element of almost sort of flippancy about the way that he's conducted his life whilst in office. We all heard, didn't we, the jokes about the wallpaper in Number 10, but of course all of these lines come from the fact that a lot of the scandals that have brought him down are acutely personal, and they're to do with actually how he conducts his private life. Very little to do actually with policy. And I think many people had said from the beginning that he's not a serious person, or as serious a person as he should be, that he sees being Prime Minister almost just as like having a title, almost the idea of being Prime Minister was what was important to him. And again, it just feeds into this image of a man who is playing at politics, who has not taken the role perhaps as seriously as he could have done, and that is what's led to his downfall, by not actually being as rigorous, as upholding the standards in public office. And I do wonder, the word party might come to haunt him. I do think maybe he will look back on this and say, well, actually, I could have taken things a little bit more seriously. I had a huge mandate, I had a huge opportunity to do great things, and I squandered a lot of it.
But how much of this is real? Because as you said, there's all this focus on, well, he wants to use Chequers for a celebration. Well, maybe that's right, maybe it isn't. But there's no precedent for him to walk away, as the Labour Party says. Well, he should walk away now because it's a zombie government. Well, except if he did walk away now, which would be fairly unprecedented, then there'd be a caretaker Prime Minister, which isn't really constitutional, and then they would say it's an unelected interim leader, and therefore it's a zombie government.
Of course, that's all just plain politics. I think some of this stems from the fear that was being promoted by Dominic Cummings actually on Twitter. They never want to sort of let anything lie, saying that if you leave him in place, as the man sort of overseeing things whilst there's a contest, he will believe that there's a way back. I don't know quite how he'd be able to see that there's a way back, but we also heard that from other people who were doing on the airwaves yesterday. Alistair Campbell, for example, was very keen that Boris Johnson should be turfed out as quickly as possible because there might be some plot to hold on, a la Donald Trump. I think it is all quite overblown. I think it's a bit hysterical. I really do just think it's the case of Boris Johnson being quite an indolent person, just in general, and actually not taking things quite as seriously as he could have done. But I don't think for a second actually that he genuinely believes at this moment in time, with the square root of nothing to support him in cabinet or in his party, I don't think he genuinely believes that there's a way that he can keep on going.
No, in fact, one of the newspaper columnists, I think, is having a joke saying that actually Carrie is steaming the wallpaper off the wall. She's going to take it with her. How much in this whole soap opera is Carrie involved?
Well, it's an interesting one because there has been this debate about whether or not Carrie's involvement, whether talking about Carrie's involvement makes you kind of sexist. You're saying it's not really his fault, it's his wife's fault. And there's been a bit of that around, but we know that, she had, as the Eye reports it, played her own role in the Number 10 soap opera that, unfortunately, and they quote an invoice that was seen by The Independent, some of the details that come out, a drinks trolley that they bought costing £3,675. In fact, the cheapest item on that invoice was a 500 quid tablecloth. I'd be wearing the tablecloth if it cost me 500 quid. So, that kind of thing, you do think, like Benedict says, what on earth was going on? And, the kind of, I think the arrogance of thinking that this stuff would never get out tells you something about those two individuals. And obviously there's, they quote the ABBA party that allegedly happened in Number 10 and all those kind of gaffes and scandals. But I think the thing that I want to highlight about Carrie was that we were at one point talking, there was a kind of nickname for her as Carrie Antoinette that lots of people did dismiss as sort of sexist, but there was a significant thing about her playing a political role, something like the kind of Dominic Cummings role, which was she was whispering in the Prime Minister's ear, as wives and husbands do, But that there was significant moves in relation to, you know, what happened with the Afghanistan withdrawal, with the whole fury over, you know, taking animals instead of people on that escape mission, that there have been moves in relation to some of her pet projects around climate change or animals' rights and all that kind of thing. And that for me is the bigger problem, which is that if you have somebody who is unelected, having that much of a role in the serious issue of politics, never mind blowing loads of money on wallpaper and things like that, that I think is to me the more serious problem. And the key thing to say about that is it says a lot about Boris Johnson, because as much as he put himself forward as this man of principle, as someone who is going to shake things up, time and time again he proved himself to be somebody who parroted what the last person said in his ear, whether that was Dominic Cummings or some other advisor or indeed his wife. And I think that's probably part of the reason. Never mind, you know, they quote here in the Eye, the Mustique trip, Barnard Castle, the Chris Pincher thing, all of that plays a role, but I think fundamentally it has been that he's proven himself to be unprincipled.
Okay, look, we've got to leave it there. We are so tight for time today, but thank you. We'll catch up with you a little bit later on, Benedict and Ella.